Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Built Heritage Subcommittee meeting of May 11th, 2021. I'd like to take this opportunity to call the members to order. Due to the continuing state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held remotely through Zoom. Though we are meeting virtually, the land on which Ottawa is built upon is unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that the peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The City of Ottawa honors the people and the land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, and the City of Ottawa also honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. This meeting is being held remotely through Zoom. Those who do not need to participate in the meeting can also watch it live on the Ottawa City Council YouTube channel. A reminder to participants to please keep your microphones muted until I call upon you to speak. I will provide each committee member with the opportunity to ask questions or comment on each item in the order in which they raise their hand in Zoom. For panelists, the raise hand option is found at the bottom of the participants list. For those calling in, press *9 to raise your hand. The committee coordinator and I will be watching for those cues. Members are also reminded to submit any motions, visual supports, or declarations of interest in writing to the coordinator at their earliest opportunity. Although the deadlines have passed for residents to register to speak and provide written submissions to this subcommittee, residents may make submissions to the Finance and Economic Development Committee on item 2, the Heritage Community Improvement Plan application for 3537 William Street, or to council on the other items. If you have technical difficulties signing into the meeting, you can contact the committee coordinator by calling 613-580-2424, extension 22953. A reminder that if participants are having technical issues with their Zoom connection, they may call in using the backup telephone number provided by the coordinator. As of now, I have received no regrets. Could the committee coordinator please call the roll? A reminder to members to unmute themselves when they are called.
Member Halsell.
Present.
Member Podolsky. Councillor Gower.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Member Conforti.
Present.
Councillor Brockington.
Good morning.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Vice Chair Quinn.
Present.
Chair King.
And I'm here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, are the minutes of Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 confirmed?
Yes.
Confirmed. So our first item deals with planning, infrastructure, and economic development, right-of-way, heritage, and urban design services. And that item pertains to designation of Porter's Island Bridge under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Can staff please provide an overview of this report?
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. This first item is going to be for the designation of Porter's Island Bridge under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Next slide, please. A little bit of background on the bridge. In 2017, the property was added to the Heritage Register through the Heritage Inventory Project. In 2018, the Lowertown Community Association submitted a designation request for the bridge. That following year, staff and infrastructure services commissioned an impact assessment to provide options for the bridge. These included decommissioning, maintaining the current functionality, or reinstating the pedestrian crossing. Heritage staff have been working with infrastructure services staff on the second option to maintain the current functionality. Next slide. The bridge is located in Lowertown and connects St. Patrick Street to Porter's Island. The bridge was the main point of access until the second bridge, known as Island Lodge Road, was added in the 1960s, making the original bridge redundant. Next slide. Constructed in 1894, the bridge has 2 spans and uses a pin-connected Pratt through truss. The Pratt truss is a triangular truss design with vertical posts connecting diagonal post slopes towards the center of the bridge. This creates a rigid structure. The pin-connected Pratt truss was easy to erect on site with unskilled labor, was highly economical, and the pinned connection precludes bending stresses being transmitted through the structure. This is a rare surviving example of this type of bridge. The bridge is made of steel and has stone piers. It was closed in the 1990s. Today, the bridge holds an active gas line. Next slide. The bridge was designed by city engineer Robert Surtees and features a steel trusses and wooden decking. The trusses were fabricated by the Dominion Bridge Company in Lachine, Quebec, and shipped to Ottawa for assembly on site. Next slide. The left-hand image shows the remaining latticework that once spanned the bridge. Most of the railing has been replaced with pipe rail. The right image shows the fencing barricading off access to the bridge from both St. Patrick's Street as well as from the island. Next slide. Constructed in 1894, Porter's Island Bridge was the only point of access to the island. Health, and more specifically isolation for contagious diseases, was the prime motivator for building the bridge to connect Porter's Island to the rest of Ottawa. Next slide. The first isolation hospital was constructed in 1894 along with the administration buildings and 4 cottages. Tents were set up to accommodate the growing number of smallpox patients, and a new permanent hospital was built in 1912-1913, designed by Francis Sullivan. In later years, the island would be used as emergency housing during the Great Depression and again after the Second World War. By the 1950s, the hospital had been converted to offices for use by the city's recreation department. In 1964, the first seniors' residence was constructed along with a new road bridge called Island Lodge Road. Since the 1970s, the island has been home to 2 long-term care facilities. With urban renewal in Lowertown in the 1950s and 60s, and the construction of the new, wider bridge, the original Porter's Island Bridge became redundant. By the 1990s, the bridge was closed in the winter months and later closed permanently. Next slide. In terms of policy framework, the official plan states that individual properties will be designated as properties of cultural heritage value under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The provincial policy statement in 2020 states that significant built heritage resources and significant cultural heritage landscapes shall be conserved. Next slide. In order to designate under the Ontario Heritage Act, the property must meet Ontario Regulation 0906, which requires properties to meet one of 3 criteria: design value, historical value, or contextual value. Porter's Island Bridge meets all 3 criteria. Next slide. Porter's Island Bridge meets the criteria for design as a rare Canadian example of a double-span Pratt through truss bridge. Patented in 1844 by American bridge builder Thomas Pratt, the Pratt truss is a highly efficient type of truss with a single diagonal in each panel, vertical panel post, inclined end post, and parallel top and bottom chords. The Pratt truss was widely used in wooden truss bridge construction in North America and was later adopted for metal truss bridges used on roadways and railways. Porter's Island Bridge is an important reminder of historic bridge building methods used in Canada in the late 19th century. Next slide. Porter's Island Bridge has historic value as a representative work of city engineer Robert Surtees. Surtees is noteworthy in Ottawa for his designs including the Carleton County General Protestant Hospital, also known as Wallace House today, the Carleton County Courthouse, known as Arts Court, and the nearby Minto Bridges. Porter's Island Bridge also has historic value and its relation to the Dominion Bridge Company, an important bridge building company in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Based originally in Lachine, Quebec, the Dominion Bridge Company's plant was considered the largest and best equipped machine shop on the continent. Next slide. Porter's Island Bridge also has historic value as a link to healthcare on Porter's Island. The bridge was the main access across the Rideau River to Porter's Island until the 1960s. The island was first used as a quarantine site in 1894 with the creation of the Isolation Hospital. The island would continue to serve as an isolation site for much of the early 20th century. The island was later used as emergency housing during the Great Depression and after the Second World War, making the bridge pivotal in the continued usage of the island for 70 years. Next slide. The bridge meets the criteria for contextual value because it is physically, functionally, and historically linked to its surroundings, telling the story of Porter's Island through its historical functions of carrying people and goods to the island. Next slide. In terms of consultation, the Lower Town Community Association submitted the designation request and are supportive of this designation. They've included comments in the report. Councillor Flory is also supportive of the designation and also included comments in the report. Lastly, Heritage Ottawa has also provided their support. Next slide. In conclusion, staff recommend to designate Porter's Island Bridge as it meets the criteria for designation under 0906. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley, for that very thorough report on this wonderful historic structure. At this point, we did receive a correspondence from Heritage Ottawa in an email dated May 10th in support. And we just recently, just minutes ago, also received a letter of support from the Lower Town Community Resource Center. There are no speakers registered. So does the committee have any questions for staff or any comments? And I see no hands raised. I would just like to say briefly that I'm always impressed, and I think that this is the first time that as chair I've encountered a built structure versus simply built home or residence or other type of structure. And I think it's exciting that we have this opportunity really to look at this type of structure having some level of designation. So I'm really pleased and excited to see this. I see as ward councillor, Councillor Fleury's hand raised.
I apologize for that, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to raise it at the right moment. Thank you for your intervention. I want to first and foremost thank my community, specifically Nancy Miller-Chenier and Liz McKenzie, who've really worked hard on a number of fronts over the years with Ashley specifically, going back to the McDonald Garden Park designation and a number of highlights in Ashley's presentation and now this bridge. Maybe a quick question to staff before I wrap up my comments, and it relates maybe to Jen's team, which is the infrastructure, the asset management team. Currently the bridge is unusable, it's actually fenced off. So I'm curious to understand how this designation will influence the attention, because I think there is a unique opportunity for programming and for access that need to be corrected, if you will, with the importance of that structure.
Good morning, Chair. So we're not looking at changing the use of the bridge at this time. So we've included in the asset management implications, the heritage designation will include 3 major rehabilitations to extend the life cycle for another 75 years. But that's all based on its current use, which is to carry the pipeline and not to upgrade it to be able to support pedestrian access at this time.
So Jen, if I were to want to develop a plan to make it pedestrian access once again, what is the mechanism? I don't sit on built heritage, and I believe this item is rising to council next, right? So I just want to clarify, maybe would we need a motion at council to give a direction to look at future pedestrian access?
I'm not sure, quite honestly, what the process is for that. I'd have to take it away and work with either the legislative colleagues or Ashley's team to confirm what that process is.
Okay, let's take it offline. I mean, we will have time until council to get those details. Again, I want to thank the the community and heritage staff and asset management staff for their involvement. I think there's a unique opportunity here to showcase the history in Ottawa, as Ashley really did a wonderful job in her presentation to showcase the various amenities and how they're interlinked to different eras in Ottawa's history. And I hope, and I will work as per my comments to once again give some program ability for that site. And I see that as pedestrianization access as one of the main drivers here. So I'll take that away with city staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fleury, for those comments. Is this report carried? Carried. The report is scheduled to be presented to Council on May 26, 2021. Our next item involves economic development and long-range planning, and it is the Heritage Community Improvement Plan application for 35 through 37 William Street, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located within the Byward Market Heritage Conservation District. Can staff please provide an overview of this report?
Certainly. I'm joined by my colleague, Chris Cope here, who works in Economic Development Services. He and I were both co-authors on the report. I will be making the presentation, but both of us are here to answer questions. All right, next slide, please. The Heritage Improvement Plan, or CIP, was adopted by Council in January 2020, and this is the first application. The goal of the program is to encourage property owners of heritage buildings to restore their buildings. The program uses a tax increment-based grants, which will be paid through the anticipated cumulative increase in the municipal portion of the property taxes. Owners may receive grants equal up to 25% of the increase in taxes paid over a 10-year period. The final amount will be based on the actual revised assessment and the then current taxation rates following the completion of the project and a reassessment by impact by the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. Next slide. The property at 3537 William is designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located within the Byward Market Heritage Conservation District. In April 2019, a fire damaged the building and destroyed the former Victoria restaurant. Much of the building was lost. The photo shows the building today with the debris removed and the bracing of the front and side walls in place. Next slide, please. The left image shows the building pre-fire, while the right-hand images show the approved heritage plans. A heritage permit for the restoration and alterations was approved in January 2020. The proposal includes the conservation of the two-story William Street facade and developing a new building in the rear. The proposal also includes adding 2 additional stories, which will be stepped back from the front facade. Next slide. The approach used on the site will be one of restoration in compliance with the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places. The surviving elements of the building will be repaired, including the stone and brick of the front facade. Only elements beyond repair will be replaced in kind. As part of the Heritage Community Improvement Plan, a conservation plan was required. The plan outlines the various restoration aspects of the project. These include the foundation, stonework, and brickwork that will be repaired and maintained as required. Cracks and fracture repairs, as well as Dutchman repairs, may be required either to repair the existing stones or bricks, or to repair damage that may occur during construction. Replacement of any masonry will be done in kind, sourcing the correct stone or brick. All repointing should be completed in a compatible manner using a lime-based mortar. The wooden elements, including the cornice, windows, and doors, will be repaired or replicated as required. Next slide. The property qualifies as an eligible Heritage CIP project and is located within the identified as the area for the Heritage CIP, as described in the bylaw, and it satisfies all the program requirements. The proposed redevelopment will restore an empty space resulting from the 2019 fire and will allow the restaurant to return to business, which in turn will create jobs and animate the street. The project will also provide housing in a popular Byward Market area and help revitalize William Street. Due to the redevelopment efforts, the municipal portion of the property taxes is expected to increase from approximately $36,000 to approximately $81,000, an increase of a little over $45,000 annually, or about 126% over the existing taxes. Looking at the chart on the right, the blue line at the left represents the current tax amount. The red bars represent the post-development estimated municipal taxes. The purple represents the grant amount. The Heritage CIP will be based on 75% of the increase in the municipal portion of the property taxes and is estimated to be at nearly $400,000 over the 10-year grant period. The amount represents an approximate order of magnitude and is based on an estimated future assessed value and taxation rates. The final amount of the CIP grant will be based on actual revised assessment and then current taxation rates following the completion of the project post-development reassessment, which will be done by MPAC. And as per the estimates provided for the project, the restoration cost for component for this project will be about $650,000. And then that's the end of concludes the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, for another great in-depth report for us. In terms of this item, we only received one piece of correspondence, and that was from Heritage Ottawa, dated May 10th, once again in support of this project. We do have a registered speaker who is Dominic Santaguida of Victoria Trattoria restaurant. And so I'd like to invite him to address the subcommittee.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank Ashley, Chris, and Councillor Fleury for all their assistance with getting our proposal to this level. And I hope the committee considers our request.
Appreciate those comments. Does anyone on subcommittee have any questions for Dominic? Seeing none, does the committee have any questions or comments for staff? And I do see Councillor Moffat has his hand raised.
Thanks. I'm just curious about the timing of this application and the creation of the program, the CIP program. So council approved the rebuilding plan for this site in January of 2020. Council approved the Heritage CIP program in January of 2020. So we already knew that the property was going to be redone. We already approved the heritage permit. We knew the redevelopment was happening post-fire. And then the applicant applied for a grant?
Yes, that's right. Chris might be better suited to speak to timing options for the CIP programs.
Yes, Chair. This application came in as part of a decision-making process, which happens with any project. How are we going to make this happen? How are we going to get it done, and all that kind of stuff. And we worked with Dominic to try and find ways to do this. But as it turned out, the heritage costs alone were fairly significant, and yet Dominic also had fairly large plans for what could be done with the property beyond just putting the restaurant back, and which involved a very extensive renovation, including in addition to the back with some long-term residential units kind of thing. So it simply comes together that it begins to make sense. And I sort of refer it to as the, looking at it maybe negatively, but the straw that breaks the camel's back. Having a grant in place from the city, which I would say would be self-financed out of the increase in taxes. Because the tax increase is nearly double what the grant amount is in the 10-year period. And then after the 10-year period, it stays up when we get all of it kind of stuff. And so in addition to that would finance our grant, the grant itself would assist the owner with actually getting the construction over the top and going. And at a time when it's very important to the market, given the post-pandemic issues that are going on there now anyway, we're going to be really happy to see that restaurant reopen and that additional housing available in the Byward Market area.
Yeah, no question there. Obviously, we approved all this at the start of 2020, so council supports this plan for this property. My question is just the timing again. So it has the appearance of the plan was already in place, and then the opportunity arose to get some tax credits. There's no questioning the value of a CIP program here. But if you could just explain that. So
well, one of the things I will say in the application itself, there is a statement in there by the applicant, basically saying that he would not have done it. I think in this case, we could say he would not have done it this way had he not received the grant. So it's the grant is intended as an incentive. The decision-making process is only final when actually purchase orders are issued and work starts. And so any developer of any project has a process from when he originally conceives the idea, ultimately looks at his options, and ultimately gives a green light to his builder to build it. And finance is a really huge portion of that decision-making process. And in this case, we think, and I think the owner thinks, it kicked it off the top on a timely basis.
So did council approve a project in January 2020 that was not feasible to be built? Is that what is happening here?
I wouldn't say it's not feasible, but final plans hadn't been put in place as to how it was going to be financed and what the actual pro forma finance portion of it was. That it wasn't finalized based just on the actual design. Council approves the design. The owner has to figure out how to build it.
Okay, and it just was convenient that we had this CIP program that was established at the same time. It just worked out well.
Yes, I think it maybe very much was, but
okay, that's all. I just was curious. I mean, it sounds odd, right? It sounds like we had it sounds like conveniently the owner found a way to save money in the long term through the grant, but I guess it's just a coincidence of timing. Obviously, I support the program. I support the redevelopment. We've said that multiple times, and back in 2019 and 2020 when this came through Built Heritage Subcommittee and council, but it was just curious on that timing because it did seem odd. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. Councillor Gower.
Thanks, Chair. It is good to see the CIP program being used. I had two questions. One was to staff about how do you estimate what the property tax increase is going to be?
Chair, perhaps I'm best to answer that question. Part of the application process is there is a requirement the applicant submit a report from a certified appraiser. And in this case, the applicant produced a report from Glenn Lucas, Property Tax Review Services. And basically that company goes over the plans and specifications for the future building and assesses it using the same principles. And in many cases, some historical aspects that come from MPAC. And so basically he's trying to duplicate MPAC's assessment, only he's doing it on drawings. In the end, however, the actual grant, when it's actually paid out after the building's completed, is paid out on actuals. So we have a pretty good idea because we have an expert evaluation, but in the end, we will pay only what is required under the grant. And so, for example, if the owner didn't build it, we wouldn't pay anything.
Okay, thank you. My other question is one of procedure. So we are receiving this report today from Built Heritage Subcommittee, but it's actually FEDCO who will approve this grant. So does that mean as Built Heritage Subcommittee, we're not making any recommendation to FEDCO? We're not assessing whether or not this is a worthy project. We're simply receiving this report as a FYI, essentially. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gower. Councillor Brockington.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning to you and everyone. Just to follow on questions from Councillor Moffat, I have no issue with the owner of this property tapping into a grant that exists. If the city created a grant and it's open to everyone to tap in, so be it. But I want to make sure that I'm comforted by a fairness process here to make sure that if the grant is fairly new, can staff tell me how the industry is aware that the grant is available and not just Like, is it on a first come, first served basis? Do we get a number of applications and we try and assess or prioritize? How does that happen?
I can take this question. At this point, the only projects that are designated under the Ontario Heritage Act are eligible and contributing properties. As we attend pre-consultations for future developments, Heritage staff are communicating that this program exists. We've been working on a outreach or strategy for the program, so we're looking to expand that further, the messaging. And so far, it's been a first come, first serve since this is the first application, and we do anticipate more interest coming up very shortly.
So in addition to this application, have there been any other applications over the last 12, 13 months?
Not full submissions. We've had some inquiries with some draft and some correspondence with various applicants, but nothing formally submitted yet.
What's our annual budget for this grant?
It's $500,000 for the program.
Fair enough. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brockington. Member Hassel.
Yes, another quick question on the gates, the financial gates or the checks and balances. I see in the staff report there's sort of a budgeted amount for engineering, for consultants and whatnot. I assume the proponent would have to submit something to verify those costs before receiving the funds, or is there any way of ensuring that the amounts reflected at this early stage are verified at completion?
After completion of the project, we will be required, or they will be required to submit final invoices, and staff will be doing an inspection to ensure that they comply with the standards and guidelines and what was already approved.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Member Hassel. I see that Member Podolsky has his hand raised.
Thank you, Chair King. On this item, even though the Built Heritage Subcommittee may not be asked to make a recommendation on it, I would like to declare interest because I was the architect that was put together the whole development concept and the design after the fire. And I just wanted to record that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Podolsky. We will record that for the record. Are there any other questions or comments on this item? If not, I just want to say that I'm obviously supportive, I think, of this plan, which ultimately was born out of the Mirrors Heritage Matters Task Force in 2016, but was ultimately instituted as by bylaw as a program in January 2020. The principal goals of the Heritage Community Investment Plan is to encourage property owners of buildings designated under the Ontario Heritage Act to restore their buildings. And this program is targeting vacant and abandoned heritage buildings that are very costly to restore and to help offset those additional costs for restoration. Similar to the Brownfields program, the Heritage Incentive Grant is a tax increment equivalent grant which provides financial incentives to property owners with qualified restoration and adaptive reuse projects within the City of Ottawa. The grant is the equivalent to a portion of the increase in the municipal property tax directed and attributed to restoration. The program would be based on the assumption that development would not occur but for the incentives made to the property owner. Grants would be paid only after restoration and development is completed. The annual budget, as we heard from staff, is $500,000 for this 3-year pilot. The city reimburses successful applicants in the form of an annual grant equal to 75% of the municipal tax increment resulting from the project. Grants would extend for up to 10 years after project completion to a maximum of $500,000, but not exceeding the total cost of the restoration work. Eligible costs include the restoration, costs associated with hiring a heritage consultant, and heritage reports such as cultural heritage impact statements. This brings Ottawa into line with other cities in Ontario, such as Toronto, Oshawa, and Kingston, with the program being very much in line with the Planning Act, the official plan, and the provincial policy statement. As the purpose of the Heritage CIP is to encourage restoration of designated institutional, commercial, mixed use and mid to large scale multi-residential buildings. In this type of scenario, small scale residential buildings are ultimately ineligible. And that would include single and semi-detached homes and townhomes. So that's the nature of this program. I think that in context with the challenges, especially that the market is facing, it's very timely, and I am supportive of this item. I just wanted to note, of course, with the declaration that was provided by Member Podolsky, that Member Podolsky, I'm assuming, will not be voting on this item. And so is this item carried? Or is this item received? Sorry.
Received.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this report is scheduled to be presented to the Finance and Economic Development Committee on June 1st, 2021. The next item on our agenda is...
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah, thank you. The next item on this agenda is from the Office of the City Clerk, and it's a status update on Built Heritage Subcommittee inquiries and motions for the period ending April 23rd, 2021. There is no presentation on this item. Does the committee have any questions for staff or any comments on this item? And I see no hands. This item is pretty pro forma. So is the report received? And it's received. We have no in-camera items to date. And also we did not receive any notices of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting. And we also have no inquiries. Under other business, there is a planning circulation on the agenda, which was distributed to members prior to the meeting. Members of the public have the opportunity to comment through DevApps on ottawa.ca. An Ontario Heritage Act application would be considered at a later date. Is there any other business? Seeing none, on adjournment, is the motion carried?
Carried.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you.